Welcome back to the Movie Howze, and today I must remind you that I am but one man. Despite best efforts, there's gobs of movies I haven't seen, so every now and then one must play catch-up. And today I want to talk about remember when we all used to like Disney? Remember when they did more than just run previously successful franchises into the ground after buying them out? Remember when they didn't just do live-action remakes of their animated classics? Remember when they actually made original movies to try and compete? Lord of the Rings is a mega hit, so let's adapt Tolkien's buddies' work and make some Narnia movies, shit like that. This is the kind of thinking that led to a much healthier industry. One such genre that they never really could get to stick, though, and it wasn't for a lack of trying, was sci-fi, with their strongest effort undoubtedly being TRON. The little franchise that couldn't. It's gotta hold some record for series with the longest gap in between sequels, and every time they've released an installment, it's generally been given the same reception. People praise the sights and sounds, malign the confusing narrative and wonky pacing, the movie underperforms at the box office, it gains cult status years later from people rediscovering it, which makes studio heads think, maybe this time it'll work if they make a new one. And that leads us to TRON ARES. Now, if you've never seen a TRON movie, this synopsis is gonna sound like absolute techno-babble gobbledygook, but I'll try my best here. What if computers, motherboards, video games, etc. actually held a digital frontier within, where security programs are badass warriors defending against viruses like some sort of neon-lit white blood cells brought to you by McAfee? Where a motorcycle traveling on ribbons of light zipped across the info superhighway to deliver your email? What if we could enter that plane, but more pressingly, what if we could pull those from within this digital world into our analog one? TRON ARES posits that question, pitting rival tech firms Encom and Dillinger Systems against each other as they attempt to unlock permanence, the secret to creating digital life forms that can thrive and sustain in our reality. Whereas Encom sees the technology as a means of mass fabricating fruit trees and such to feed the world, Dillinger sees the future of AI warfare. In the middle of this is ARES, a program designed to be the perfect soldier that's gone rogue after gaining a taste of living in the real world. Not gonna lie, this movie genuinely surprised me. I've long had a soft spot for this goofy franchise, especially Legacy, but after all the negative reviews and current day Disney's absolute dogshit track record, I was expecting the worst with ARES. What I got instead is actually a pretty decent movie that, like its predecessors, ends up being elevated by its visuals and a truly killer soundtrack. Yes, many of the complaints I heard prior to watching it, I found to be valid. It's barely a sequel to Legacy and more a spin-off. Taking ideas from that film's canceled sequel, TRON Ascension, and instead making a narrative cul-de-sac, if you will. The characters and setups from that previous film are written off, replaced via some pretty iffy exposition and plot conveniences. We're so far removed from the main narrative that TRON, the franchise's namesake, who to be fair was relegated to badass side character in Legacy, doesn't even make an appearance here in any way, shape, or form. No Alan Bradley, no Rinsler, nothing. Even with all that, the pros, if ever so slightly, outweigh the cons for me here. All three TRON movies are deeply flawed, just in their own ways. The original lore creator Steven Lisberger established has always been confusing. On top of that, the 82 original is glacially paced, to put it mildly. Legacy is the strongest film by far, but it still had pacing issues, and attempted to push de-aging effects hard in a time when they really weren't ready for prime time. Which is why I wished for the recent 4K re-release, they had gone back and improved set effects. There is AI deepfakes from years back that look better, and it would probably be dirt cheap to do, but whatever. My point is, to like this franchise is to like it despite itself. For example, with ARES, much of the new cast here is the typical Hollywood quota-filling young diverse ensemble. They're all incredibly bland, unmemorable, spouting Marvel humor, and just making you wonder why we replaced the old characters with these guys. Like Greta Lee's Eve Kim, the human protagonist of the story, is just kinda here. At the same time, though, you have the likes of Evan Peters, Gillian Anderson, and Jeff Bridges, and they're all fantastic. Bridges returns as some sort of Ghost in the Machine remnant of Kevin Flynn. I don't really know how it makes any sense, but he's still rocking the whole Zen dude bra thing, and it's great. I'll even admit Jared Leto's pretty good in this film as the titular character, which, shocker for sure, but I dug Ares' fish out of water artificial life experience in the world with fresh eyes story. You know, Pinocchio wanting to be a real boy, so to speak. Yeah, it's something we've seen many, many times before, from the Terminator to Johnny 5. It works, it's just not original. But let's be real here, we don't watch TRON for deep characters. We're here for the spectacle. And the visuals, as usual, impress. That's more a credit to Legacy's director Joseph Kosinski establishing the modern aesthetic for this series. Not having him back was a fumble on Disney's part, but to be fair, he's been busy being one of the few modern directors that still makes genuine crowd-pleasing blockbuster entertainment. In his place helming is Disney directorial journeyman Joachim Ronning, who does a solid job emulating Legacy's style. This series' visuals has always been about the pursuit of the almighty cool cool. It may not be as deep as it thinks it is, but man, does it make for some bitchin' screensavers. But I'd argue even this isn't why people dig this series. I genuinely think if you ask the average fan what's the most important part of a Tron movie, the majority of them are gonna say the music. From the early trailblazing work of synth pioneer Wendy Carlos to the gorgeous fusion of electronic and orchestral in Legacy's brilliant score by Daft Punk and Joseph Trapanese, the latter which moved on to equally excellent work for the criminally underseen Uprising animated series. Tron has established a pedigree for attracting the best in the electronic music world. The filmmakers for ARES knew they needed to find an act that was not only a bold statement, but musically distinct from its predecessors. I just never thought in a million years that Nine Inch Nails would be the ones to answer the call. Industrial metal icon Trent Reznor alongside his partner Atticus Ross have done plenty of film scores before, but not one under the NIN moniker, and that makes a world of difference. As a lifelong fan of Nine Inch Nails, this was a treat. This score kicks so much ass. It sounds nothing like the previous films, but at the same time feels completely appropriate, replacing the flowing digital pulse of Legacy with a distorted, aggressive soundscape captured on analog synthesizers, providing an infectious energy to even seemingly pedestrian sequences. Is it as good as Legacy's score? No. But it didn't need to be. I also just find it hysterical that the same dude who wrote The Downward Spiral now has an album released by Disney Records. Now, some of you might be criticizing me for going seemingly kids' gloves to this movie, and to be fair, I look at the Tron franchise as something akin to Pink Floyd's The Wall, or more appropriately, Daft Punk's Interstellar 5555. Movies that without their soundtrack really would not have much impact. Is there a story? Yeah, but it's all in service to the visuals fueled by incredible music, turning a mid-movie experience into something a lot more memorable. This is the cinematic equivalent of pop music, okay? It's not deep, but man is it catchy. Doesn't really matter though, because I think it's safe to assume that this is the last we'll see of Tron, and while that's sad, it isn't really surprising. Multiple things prevented this from being a success. For starters, Tron's never been a huge moneymaker. Both previous films made money, but they weren't massive hits. Secondly, trust with major film studios, and especially Disney, is at an all-time low, with audiences burnt out by years and years of terrible sequels, reboots, and remakes. And even when something decent like this comes out, the entire film industry has conditioned its audience now to wait the 45 days until it comes to streaming. There is no real FOMO anymore to go to the movies. And lastly, Jared Leto, man. Even if I thought he was decent here, even if he was a big part of this film even getting made, he has a stigma attached to him. He's headlined way too many terrible movies, and he has an annoying off-the-camera persona to boot. All these combined, and there was no way this wasn't going to bomb. There's also no denying that this would have been a stronger film if it was an honest-to-God sequel to Legacy, especially considering how this film ends, circling back to that movie's plot threads. But with what we got, I still had a decent time at the movies, sue me. Because in the end, I found Tron Ares to be a decently enjoyable midway matinee. But that's enough for me. I'd like to hear what y'all thought. Like, comment, and share if you feel so inclined. But more importantly, until next time, stay safe out there.